So I'm going to talk about retention in online education. And some of you might be scratching your head and wondering, what does retention mean? Because it's not really a problem that Asian universities and higher education institutions really face. I mean, the common knowledge is that if you get into university, you better stay in university. But it is a big issue in Western markets, for sure, Australia, UK, US, and actually a bigger problem if the mode of delivery is online. And I'm not just talking about MOOCs or like Coursera, edX, etc. I'm actually talking about degree programs, whether they're undergraduate or master's level programs. We'll talk a little bit about that. Before we get there, though, a quick introduction to our company, LINC. No points for guessing. We help universities improve student retention, and the way we do it is a little bit of the old world meets the new world philosophy. We have our own subject matter experts who drive student engagement through one-to-one support. But then under the hood, we use a lot of technology to manage these and guide these experts to proactively engage students, personalize that support, and be extremely prompt and available to the students. Most importantly, our service is university endorsed. That means the universities have to put this forth to their students. We are very young. We are, just in our second year of operations today, but we have done over 2,000 students across 6 institutions over this period of time. And I will talk later on what the results are, so I'll keep that for right at the end. So let's look at the problem first. So, again, just from a global perspective, student dropouts or attrition in online learning, it's a $30 billion problem today. It's a very well-known fact that anywhere from 25 to 35% of the students who start an online course, no matter which kind of course it is, whether it's a degree program or it's a short program or a free program, would drop out in the first 3 to 4 weeks. That's 35%. And that is a big loss, because think of all the investment that has gone into getting that student through the enrollment cycle and putting them onto the platform on that fantastic content that you would have developed as a provider. And that is the scale of this problem. Well, and this is, as I said, let's take a look at a small case study here from Australia, a market which we are very active in. The big mountain that has comes from the bottom, the blue one, that's how online enrollments have grown in Australia. So they've more than doubled over the last decade. But look at that line, that's just very stable. That's attrition, that's dropout. Nothing has happened. And over the last decade, we all know that technology to deliver content online has increased many folds. So what's happening? What's going on? Why is this not working? So it's very important to understand your student, because that's where the mystery lies. That's where you need to understand, how do learners engage in the course content, how do they study, what their behavior is. And looking, and this is from over 2,000 students that we have worked with, and it's fairly consistent that in any online classroom that you have, you would have this, your best students, which are this 15%, less than 15% of the students, who we call them as avid learners. They are fully committed, but not just that, they are fully connected. They will attend every webinar, they will be participating on forums, they will be taking every library resource possible. They will do what it takes to succeed. And, they have the lowest failure rate or non-completion rate or dropout rate. They will succeed no matter what. The next group is this kind of an in-between sort of student who is committed. They know they want to do this program, but because of their availability, maybe some other challenges that they have at time, they may not be very engaged with the course. They may not attend these webinars. They may not participate much, or they may or may not. So it's like a mixed bag. And these students, we call them intermittent learners, because they sort of wake up intermittently and then go back to sleep. You don't know what's happening the rest of the time with them. So that's about 20% of the class. And they do have slightly higher dropout rates, but still that's manageable. When you see 15 to 20% in the world of online education, that's actually a very good number. 15 to 20% that's great. And then there is this large chunk of students, 65% of the online class enrollments. And these students, we don't know what's happening with them. They are enrolled, but there is no sign to indicate how active they are. Yes, they may log into the LMS, they may review some course content, and there is LMS analytics to figure that out. But we don't know if they are learning, and therefore we don't know whether they are struggling, and therefore we don't know whether they are going to complete the course successfully or not. And that is 65%, and we call them passive learners, because as far as we know, we have no idea how well engaged with the course content and the learning the student is. They will never attend any webinar, they will never post on the forums, and they will log in on the LMS once in a while and spend some time and maybe submit an assessment. The idea is to take this group, the last group, which has more than 40% drop rates, and turn that around and activate these students. So what do we do? As I was saying, we are a little bit of an old world meets the new world approach. We take a subject matter expert or a teacher, this could be a teacher or a facilitator in the online context. We connect them, apart from all the other traditional teaching activities that they might do, so they might take webinars, they might do marking, feedback, forum management, etc. All that's great. But what we then do is we tell them that you need to engage with the student on a one-to-one basis, like a tutor, like a personal tutor. And these are subject matter experts. So we support a lot of postgraduate programs, MBAs, masters in analytics, management, so on and so forth. So these are people who have that capability to support students. Capability to talk about the content. But then they extend themselves to the student for one-to-one support, which could be either over phone, email, chat, text, whichever way, whatever is convenient for the student. They're available in the evenings and weekends. Why? Because online learners, they don't have a set pattern of learning. They're not coming into class every day at fixed schedule. Some students may learn on Monday evenings from 10 to 11, some others learn on the weekends. But that is the nature of online learning. That's where they signed up for the course. And especially if the course costs them about $50,000, you need to give them the flexibility to study when they want to study. And this support is very relevant to them. What will it take to succeed in this course? That's what these teachers are able to guide them upon. And under the hood is all the technology. So we use machine learning algorithms to identify which students are at risk and need to be proactively engaged. We use process automation to manage the teacher. So we actually are able to dictate whether and monitor and dictate what the teacher's behavior towards the student should be. If they're following a particular engagement pattern or not. If they're not following, follow up with them, make sure that they execute. So there's a very consistent philosophy in student engagement. And then we use natural language processing because a lot of our conversations are over phone. We generate tons and tons of audio-based information. And that audio-based information is used to extract student sentiment. It's used to extract the topics of discussions. And it's used to extract what kind of issues these students are facing. And you put all of this together, you have a very seamless platform which can tell you a lot about the student problems. It can tell you a lot about what's going wrong in the course, and it can tell you, because you have the agents of change, i.e. the teachers, it can tell you what they need to do to fix the problem. So it comes that it's a fairly complex situation, but what it results is in this graphic, which I personally feel very proud of since I've made it myself. but what we are able to drive is engagement. And the engagement frequency that you see here is that there are about 56 to 60% of the class, that online learners, who are engaging with their teachers in a one-to-one basis or with the course in more than 85% of the weeks. That's a very high level of engagement with the course. And there is another 50, you can see that it just starts building out. If I take students who are engaging in one out of two or more than that, then that's almost about 75 to 80%. And that is the power of making yourself available and engaging with the student on a one-to-one basis, especially in an online environment, because that's where students are, their schedules are not regular. It's erratic. And so that's where our secret sauce is to activate the students, get them to engage with the course more frequently on an ongoing basis. And what that does is that if you remember those last two groups of students, it actually converts them into what we call in the middle group is a big 60% bucket as one-to-one dependent learners. What we have done is that we have taken these students who are otherwise consuming a fairly passive course content digitally, but we have using our teachers, we have activated them, they're engaging, and that is a 60% bucket. They will use the teachers, they will use the support, submit their assignments, and complete the course. Now, that bucket, they're not your top performers in the class. They're not the Ds and the HDs or the high distinction students. They are those who barely cross the line or slightly above that. But without the support, they would have either given up midway or they would have failed. And that's the difference why their drop rates then come down. And then, of course, yes, there are still a few that we can't help because they're not committed, motivated, or they could have some personal circumstances affecting them during that course. But that's fine. But that is the power of activating the student body, getting into that deep passive student base which is not visible on the front because they're not participating on forums, they're not participating in webinars, reaching out to them, as we like to call it, if the horse doesn't come to the well, we are taking the well to the horse. And that's what we are doing. And making sure that they succeed because, if they don't complete, they either rack up student debt, which is very common in most developed markets, or they don't meet their educational objectives. And all this conversation, all of this information is used by our technology systems to harness insights. So just to give you a sense in terms of what happens in a per 100 students per month basis, we are able to generate about 3,500 minutes of audio conversation and about 2,500 email exchanges between 100 students in a month. That's the frequency of activity that we are talking about. And this frequency of activity has a lot of power because it's got a lot of data. And that's what you can harness. We can understand a student's health in terms, not medical conditions, but their academic health, how comfortable they're feeling, what they're struggling with. We can understand what their issues are and their sentiment with the courses, which is great to get ongoing feedback to the university. Normally, universities wait for the term to go past and then some till they run a course experience survey, analyze it, and then try and say, oh, why did I get a rating of 3 on 5? I have no idea. We can tell them pretty much on a live basis what's happening. We know what kind of topics are being talked about the most, and that goes back into course design. And, of course, we can do a lot of quality control, monitoring feedback, which is important, again, feeds back to how do you manage our teachers. So that's the byproduct of what we do. And the impact, what we have seen, and I'm glad that there are at least one satisfied client in the audience who can obviously talk about this, but we have seen about 80 to 85% new student retention rate. That means of 100 students who would start an online course, we only see about 15 to 20% of them drop out, as opposed to perhaps 25 to 35%. And then we see 85 to 90% course completion rates that are successfully completing and passing. And that generates, incremental lifetime value for the universities that we work for, in addition to the deep insights on their student, which is a never-before information flow, because universities never talk to their students. I mean, think back about your own university experience. How many conversations did you have with your maths professor or your economics teacher? Unless you were an avid learner, I would bet almost none. But that's what we are able to drive. So that's our kind of a secret sauce and our sort of a mix of technology and support that's helping improve student retentions. Thank you.